Blessed to be a part of your day. Kevin Miller in the morning, KIDO Talk Radio. Don't forget the KIDO Talk Radio app where you can catch us anywhere, anytime. Joining us now from Timber and Love, the Boise Boys, Boise native Luke Caldwell. Mr. Caldwell, thank you for joining us today.
Hey, thanks for having me. How are you, Kevin?
You know, I am so moved by you and your story, not only of your success, but being a Boise, Idaho native, your love of your family, and how you've made that such a part of this show on HGTV.
Well, it's really amazing because, when we decided to sign up for this thing, we were kind of hesitant because we weren't pursuing it. It kind of came out of nowhere. And honestly, I remember talking to my wife about it and, do we really want our, family on television and whatnot? And one of the reasons why we decided to do it is we felt like, it would be neat to share our story. There's nothing special or unique about us, but I will say that we have tried to show love to kids who need a family, and we're grateful for that. And it's been such a blessing to our family, and we love to be able to share that story.
And Mr. Caldwell, for people that aren't familiar with your story of your children, your adopted children, all of your children, could you take this opportunity to share that and how you've made it a part of Boise Boys?
Well, really, it's how the whole entire thing happened and started, which is crazy to think about. I was actually a full-time worship leader touring all over the country and loved doing that. My wife and I had two kids of our own, Elias and Brighton, and then we really wanted to adopt, and we'd been praying about adopting for a while, but weren't exactly sure when we were going to do it. And you had to be 30 years old to adopt from China, and there was a little boy who we were really drawn to, but he was 5 years old. He couldn't walk. We didn't know much about him, but we knew that the adoption was going to cost $35,000, and I didn't have that laying around as a touring worship leader. So I decided to flip a house and try to make enough money or get close to it. And I did get close to it with the help of family and friends. We were able to bring back our first boy from China, Morris, and he asked us not long after that to go back and adopt his best friend, Tucker. And then a couple years later, we went back and got two more kids that were all from the same orphanage. So 3 of them have Down syndrome. Morris is in a wheelchair. And it's crazy because it really just changed our whole lives. And really, it's how I started flipping houses. It's how I paid for all the adoptions. And a TV show came out of it. So nothing we were looking for by any means, but it's turned into a whole new career and a whole new path, and we're really grateful for it.
Luke Caldwell joining us from the Boise Boys. Kevin Miller, KIDO Talk Radio. I've, again, studied you in Clint for years, and we've had you in the radio station and other stations and such. But I can't go back to not only your relationship, and we'll talk housing and all this, but so important that here you are using your talents, and I'm watching and I go, gosh, I want to be that guy. You're so positive. You don't let money get in the way, and you've made a difference in the lives of your kids.
Well, I think it's tricky because, at the end of the day, money's money, and money's never motivated me in my life. I've always done what I'm passionate about, and I feel like it's a great place to be because it really just creates a lot of freedom, I think, in your mind and then also in your actions. And, it's been fun working with Clint because, we really are polar opposites in that sense because Clint is he went to school to be a CPA. He's a real estate attorney. He's a broker. So he's in that space all day long. And I was in the arts. And so we're really like opposites attract. And so it's cool because I can, be able to have this vision. He respects it and he just figures out how to do it, in a cost-effective way. And there's obviously give and take in our show and in real life, but it really has created a lot of success because we both approach things completely different.
What has been the reaction within the real estate community within the Treasure Valley of your show?
I think we've had a lot of positive. I'm sure there's always a negative as well, but I'd say overarching, it's been very positive. Our family kind of stands out like a sore thumb anyways. Just going around. We go out to eat quite a bit and hang out a lot. We like to get our kids out in the community and not just sitting at home all day long. And so, we get to meet a lot of people, and it's so amazing. People are super encouraging and, tell us that they're super thankful that, we represent Boise and all this stuff. We don't feel that way. We're just kind of in our lane doing our own thing. But, I love this city. I grew up on 23rd Street. I went to Madison Elementary. I've just always known the city, and to see how much it's changed, over time. I think most of it's been completely positive. I love the culture and the diversity that's happening in Boise right now, and I love that all the architecture is happening now rather than super heavy in the 2000s when things were a little bit in the late 90s, a little bit more dated looking. And so I really like what's happening. But I think at the same time, some people think that we're the ones bringing people here. But I tell them all the time, like, we were the fastest growing city in America before the show started. So HGTV must have just caught wind.
Well, it is a great win to have Luke Caldwell joining us, Boise Boys, KIDO Talk Radio with Kevin Miller in the morning. So how does it work? Well, last year we left off, you had gone all in. You got your dream home for your family. You and Clint came to an agreement on that. How does it work behind the scenes, sir? I mean, again, it seems like you guys always go all in, and thankfully it's worked out for you.
Yeah, we do. And I think what's happened in the market here in Boise is a lot of the, beginner homes, the starter homes, those were obviously what we were buying and fixing up and reselling to families as well. And that's just become so, polluted in the sense that they're really hard to find. And so what Clint and I's business model has been as of late, not because we've wanted to necessarily, but we have a TV show where we've got to do 13 episodes in 8 months. So you got to find houses to do. We've tried to find houses that are, larger scale, that have a lot of potential, that were maybe, built in the wrong era, or just have, gotten kind of left alone for a few years and need an update, need a new floor plan, whatever it might be. And we add a lot of new life and love into the home and then resell it. And so that's kind of been what we've been doing a lot on this season. Although we were able to find a few hidden gems out there, and thankfully people have reached out to us that do want to sell a home or things like that. So we kind of have a little bit of an inside track for the show, which has been great. And it's helped us to be able to produce 13 brand new episodes, which we're really excited about. I mean, these houses this season are incredible, and they're all over the Treasure Valley.
Indeed. And of course, it's such a benefit that you focus here on where y'all live in the Treasure Valley. And it's amazing when you think of you and Clint versus the Property Brothers or Jeff Lewis. Once again, Luke, proving that I don't live my life. I just watch people on television living theirs. But it is a unique relationship, and we're not talking about big cities. We're talking about Boise, Idaho. When you take a look at the transformation, on this program, we talk a lot about tough issues, again, the infrastructure, all those people moving in. As someone who grew up in Boise, and you said it's positive, but what do you make of it, the undiscovered secret becoming discovered?
Yeah, I think it's one of those things where it was a matter of time. I mean, there's no way you couldn't. I mean, at the same time, when my dad moved here in the early '80s, and he discovered the secret. He just discovered it a long time ago. I mean, he moved from Orange County, and so at some point, all of us have gotten here. But I think what happens to us sometimes, once we get here, we're like, "Hey, I'm here now. No one else can be here because I'm here now." And I think that's the problem, is because we need to have open arms in essence. And I understand that no one likes the secret to be found, but Boise is an amazing place to live. I mean, it really is. It's a great community. I love being able to be so close to nature. I mean, we live on the river now, and just being able to pop out and go fishing with my boy in like less than 3 minutes on the river, just walking to it is incredible. I mean, and we're 5 minutes from downtown. And so to have that kind of lifestyle and still be able to take an hour flight to, Seattle or San Francisco is pretty incredible. And I think a lot of people notice that. And so I think you got to take it with a grain of salt, because it is a bummer, because sometimes we're getting a little bit priced out. But at the same time, even if you have to move a little bit outside of Boise to, Kuna or Meridian or Nampa or Caldwell, it's still amazing. I mean, the big scheme of things, I mean, we're still very tight and close to downtown Boise.
Season 2, HGTV, The Boise Boys. Luke Caldwell joining us, Kevin Miller, KIDO Talk Radio. So what's it like being in your own reality show?
Man, it's a little weird because, obviously you get to the point now, that's definitely on season 2. I mean, we literally, Clint and I, do not think about the cameras. I mean, we're moving. Like, for instance, the show starts tomorrow night, and we still have 4 episodes we have to finish. And so the reality of it is we're just moving, like crazy, trying to get everything done. And, and I'm a control freak. I stage and design every single house myself. I don't have, assistants, doing everything behind the scenes. And then I just show up and say like, oh, look what I did. It really is, it's difficult because it takes a lot of time. There's a lot of decisions to be made, and there's a lot of practical things that have to happen. And obviously we've got a great team around us, but the majority of all this work we're actually doing. So we've got the real job, and then you have a job of filming the entire show. So it just takes away, a lot of your time for one. And for two, it's a little intimidating because we don't get to see anything. I mean, I can't even remember what I said 2 days ago, let alone, 8 months ago when we started filming this season. And so I'm excited to watch actually tomorrow night because, I can't even really remember. It's all a blur until you watch it on TV.
Well, we'll have to ask you what it's like to watch yourself, but a couple quick more questions. I know you're busy, sir.
No, I'm good.
Oh, great. Then we've got Clint's Texas sarcasm versus your Idaho optimism. It is an entertaining blend.
Clint is a very, pragmatic person, and he's very much where the rubber meets the road. And I respect that about Clint because Clint went through, the crash, and I hadn't got into real estate yet. And so I think we both actually approach things a little bit differently because of that. He's seen how everything just went to crap back in 2008 and lived through it. And where I got into real estate about 2010 when everything was really inexpensive, and I was like, wow, this is incredible. And so I think it just kind of has been that way. And in general, I'm a pretty positive person. I definitely am. The glass is half full, and I love just the potential of what anything could become, and I love being creative. And I think Clint really helps us stay online. So it's a great balance, and it's totally real. That's what makes it so funny. We're not acting. We're not being anything other than ourselves, and that's what we love about the production company that we chose. We actually got reached out to by quite a few production companies, and High Noon Productions, they produce the show Fixer Upper and a lot of other great shows on HGTV and other networks as well. But they really just said, hey, you guys just be yourselves. We're just going to follow along. We're not going to tell you what to say. We're not going to tell you what to do. You just live your life. Don't edit yourself, and we'll deal with all that once we get all the footage. So,
yeah,
great.
Yes, and if something, Luke, goes viral, don't worry about it. It's good. It's all good.
Exactly.
Luke Caldwell joining us, Boise Boys, coming up very soon on HGTV. How did you guys get discovered?
It's one of these things where, and I've come to find out now, I realize that production companies, they've got, interns and people on their staff that literally just reaching out to anyone and everyone on social media. I mean, I've met people in Boise. I've probably met 10 people in Boise that have been reached out to by production companies looking to see if you might be the next this or that. And, we had no idea. So I've always been into marketing and social media and branding. And so the one thing I did do with our company is the moment we started flipping our first house together, I came up with the branding for Timber and Love after we came up with the name together, and just started creating an account and kind of branding ourselves as, construction company, what we did, and kind of just, taking videos and pictures and kind of following along the journey. And so we started getting reached out to by production companies. Clint was also on The Apprentice with Donald Trump. He was runner up right before they started doing all the celebrity stuff. And so, he'd already been on television for that. And so I think there was some draw there, and I was, being a touring musician. So we were both comfortable in front of the camera and all that kind of stuff. And so really that was the first step. And then it literally took 2.5 years before we had a show out on HGTV. There are so many steps you have to go through. We were shocked at all the, great job guys, but don't get your hopes up. There's like 3 other things you got to go through. And because, they spend a grip of money to produce these shows. And so it's a big risk. They have to kind of make sure that it's something that's really going to do well. And then once the pilot airs, it's all about numbers. They even told us, hey, we're rooting for you guys. We really hope your show connects with people. But at the end of the day, if you don't get this number and this retention, you're not going to have a show. So it's kind of one of those things where we really had low expectations that this was actually going to turn into anything. And we're kind of sitting back now being like, oh my gosh, this is crazy. We're just trying to finish up season 2 and who knows what's going to happen in the future.
Luke Caldwell joining us. Many people going into real estate now. We have one of the hottest markets in the country. What does it take to succeed in real estate?
I think in real estate, the first rule is obviously the most important rule, which is if you're investing in real estate, you make your money on the buy. You've got to buy low. You got to find, hidden potential in the property. You got to know that you're in a good location, and that ultimately, whether you hold on to it and rent, or whether you fix it up and sell it, that there's value there eventually. And so I think that's the most important thing. Is we like to buy houses that need love, that need help, that need some type of updating, because not everybody has the time or the money or the knowledge to go in and to take a really decrepit house and to make it beautiful. And so if we can add value that way, then for us, that's a good deal. We know not everyone can do that, and there's plenty of people out there who are willing to pay more for a house that has been totally put back together and basically become brand new. I mean, Clint and I touch every single surface of every single house. We really try our best to make it something that we would be proud for our family to live in and feel comfortable in. And because we know family is really at the heart of everything we do. And it's how we provide for our families. And we want to be proud of the homes we've worked on. And it takes a lot of work. It's not easy. It's not it's hard on these shows sometimes because, we do this massive renovation that took 6 months and it's done in an hour. And people are like, wow, man, that looks really easy. It just isn't.
Luke Caldwell, and finally, sir, we're going to be cheering for you. And like I said, if I want to grow up to be somebody, it would be you. I love your compassion, your big heart, and your family, and how you share your unconditional love without the nation. Adoption for people that are considering it. How's it impacted you, and what would you say is the reasons to adopt?
Out of anything that me and my wife are doing with our lives, that by far is the most beautiful thing in our lives. And really, what we've learned, where we find our joy. I don't find my joy in being on a television show or, making more money than I used to make or any of that kind of stuff. It really has to do with our family. And, to show love, to give is better than to receive. And I'll tell you this much, like we didn't know what to expect with adoption. I was scared when we first adopted because, I in my own heart, I was like, how can I love these kids as much as I love the kids that we've had ourselves? How's that going to be there? And it was a fear for me, but I'll tell you that right when Morris came into our home and became a part of our family, I mean, it's just literally, it just like butter. It all melted together, and it's just been perfect. And so it doesn't mean it's always easy. It's actually pretty hard. There's a lot of challenges that, they had to go through and things that they had to experience that, we never will. We're actually in the process right now of adopting a 15-year-old girl who is from Eastern Europe, who's been bedridden her entire life. And these are things that are really happening in our world. And it's tragic, and it breaks your heart. And you go over there and literally my wife and I just in tears saying, what else can we do to help these kids? It's just not fair. I really believe every kid deserves a family. And I think that all of us have a lot to give. I didn't have a ton of money just sitting around to do it, but we stepped out in faith and we walked and moved forward. And I will tell you that it is the greatest joy of our lives. So if anyone's, considering adopting, there's amazing ways to do it through foster care here locally where, they help you through the process quite a bit. These kids just need a mom and dad that just love them and want to take care of them. And you don't have to be a perfect person. You don't have to make a ton of money. You just have to be willing and available to show love, and we all can do that. And really, that's where the joy of life starts.
Luke Caldwell, we appreciate you, and thank you for making time for us this morning. Good luck, sir.
Hey, thank you so much, Kevin. I really appreciate your kind words, and excited. Thanks so much.
Have a great day.
You too.
All right, Luke Caldwell joining us. What an inspiration. Kevin Miller, KIDO Talk Radio. And don't forget, Tone Loc will be at the Boise Music Festival. For ticket details, KIDOTalkRadio.com. Coming up, we'll talk about Colorado looking to abolish ICE. Before that, traffic and weather together. Let's get you to work safely and on time. Good morning, Dave. And I'm Kevin Miller. You're listening to KIDO Talk Radio, 107.5 FM, 580 AM. Good morning, Maggie. KIDO Talk Radio, your home for Fox News and the KIDO Talk Radio app. When you hear Fox News in the Treasure Valley, you're listening to 107.5 FM, 580 AM. Joining us now, Eben Brown. Good morning, Eben.
Good morning.
So, very trending story going on. We've got the man behind the group of the armed New Mexico residents appearing in court after his group received detention for holding illicit border crossers at gunpoint. What's the latest?
Well, this man, 69-year-old Larry Mitchell Hopkins, is in custody because he happens to be a convicted felon, and he's been in possession of a lot of firearms. That's a no-no. So he was brought into court. Turns out many years ago he was impersonating police officers. He's had brushes with the law since. He was even investigated, we were told in court, that he was investigated maybe within the past couple of years for making real credible threats against the lives of President Obama, of Hillary Clinton, of George Soros. Law enforcement doesn't take too kindly to that. So he remains in jail. He has a detention hearing, I believe, next week, but he's facing significant charges, which come with significant penalties.
Of course, getting the attention of the FBI and being arrested. Obviously, if convicted, he could be spending a lot of time, maybe the rest of his life, in jail.
Well, he could, for sure. That's one of the things that comes with the felony conviction, is that you don't necessarily get the right to own or possess guns. Now, he says that they are the guns belong to his common law wife, but prosecutors really aren't buying that.
Well, Eben, we'll continue to watch the story. We appreciate it, brother.
You got it.
Thank you, Eben Brown, joining us, Fox News Radio. So, recently, CNN had a town hall meeting, and when we hear town hall meetings, obviously we're interested to what the Democrats would do. Here is California Senator Kamala Harris on, what she would do concerning the president and whether or not she believes in impeachment. And we'll get to that in a second. Do want to remind you, KIDO Talk Radio, we have a brand new newsletter. Really not brand new, but it is new. You can check it out today, KIDOTalkRadio.com. No, we won't spam you. We won't sell your emails to Billy, Willie, and Nilly. But the KIDO Talk Radio newsletter, you're going to get great stories like the one currently trending concerning the A-10s versus the F-18s here in the Treasure Valley. And if you're wondering why the skies are getting a little louder, you can check out that story right now on our website.
Massachusetts. Carla?
Good evening, Senator Harris. Thank you for joining us this evening. In light of Mueller's report, do you believe the Democrats in Congress should reconsider their position on impeachment?
Well, it depends on who you're talking to and what their position is. But here's how I feel about it. And thank you for the question, Carla. Look, for those of us who have been following the investigation and have seen any part of that report, it is very clear that there is a lot of good evidence pointing to obstruction and obstruction of justice. And I believe very strongly, first of all, let me just be very clear about the table set. I believe that we need to get rid of this president. That's why I'm running for to become president of the United States. So that is part of the premise, obviously, of my point. But I think we have very good reason to believe that there is an investigation that has been conducted which has produced evidence that tells us that this president and his administration engaged in obstruction of justice. I believe Congress should take the steps towards impeachment.
So there we have Senator Harris joining the pandering punditry where she's talking about impeaching the president of the United States. And as Rudy Giuliani would say, obstruction of what? If there was no crime committed, as Robert Mueller has attested, then what would the president be obstructing? Folks, whether you're a person of faith, whether you're a person of non-faith, whether you love America, whether you don't love America, we came very close to losing our country. And there were many times during our years together under former President Barack Obama that we would talk about the Obama legacy and what he did to the American people and what he did to this country. And if it hadn't been for Donald Trump, at one time the laughingstock of the establishment media world, where would we be? Well, certainly the libs didn't count on President Trump winning. The libs thought it was a big flippin' joke until the returns started coming in. Think about how they rigged the system. You know, people are upset that Donna Brazile has a job at Fox News right now. I don't do the hiring at Fox News. Donna Brazile, a Democratic activist, but she has no credibility. She's a nice lady, but she has no credibility. She was caught red-handed trying to tilt the promise. Hillary Clinton was such a fatally flawed candidate that even when she got the answers to the test, she failed to put away the pugnacious socialist. He's not even a Democrat, Bernie Sanders. So what happened next at 580-5436, 580-KIDO? You have the coup. And mark my words, that was a coup. That was a coup to get rid of the President of the United States even before he took office. Even before he took office, that was a coup, right? And so they couldn't get that. So now what are they going to do? Let's redact and revise and bring up every scintillating detail within the Mueller report. I mean, here you have members of the Trump team being lied to by our own Department of Justice, by the FBI. And Comey lying to the president, of course he should have been fired. $35 million for what? We almost lost the Constitution. And with all due respect, where was the Republican Party? Look, I predicted Jeb Bush was going to win. Would Jeb Bush have beaten Hillary Clinton? Would Ted Cruz have beaten Hillary Clinton? And you look at this unconventional person, Donald Trump, who basically had a life. He didn't have to do any of this. By the way, Kamala Harris, she's not done. Not only does she want to impeach the president, she wants to take your guns.
One's guns away. Supposed leaders in Washington, D.C., who have failed to have the courage to recognize, you know what, you want to go hunting? That's fine. But we need reasonable gun safety laws in this country, starting with universal background checks and a renewal of the assault weapon ban. But they have failed to have the courage to act. So, Ben, here's my response to you. Upon being elected, I will give the United States Congress 100 days to get their act together and have the courage to pass reasonable gun safety laws. And if they fail to do it, then I will take executive action. And specifically what I will do is put in place a requirement that for anyone who sells more than 5 guns a year, they are required to do background checks when they sell those guns. I will require that for any gun dealer that breaks the law, the ATF take their license. And by the way, ATF, alcohol, tobacco, and firearms. Well, the ATF has been doing a lot of the A and the T, but not much of the F.
You know, I know she's doing her act here for the folks with the CNN town hall meeting. But you buy a firearm, you have to have a background check. You go to a gun show, there's a background check. This is already going on. But she's going to pass an executive order to embolden the government to go get your guns like they're doing with the red flag laws. This is a mainstream Democratic candidate, by the way.
And we need to fix that. And then on the third piece, because none of us have been sleeping over the last 2 years, part of what has happened under the current administration is they took fugitives off the list of prohibited people. I put them back on the list, meaning that fugitives from justice should not be able to purchase a handgun or any kind of weapon. So that's what I do.
Sure. By the way, Senator Harris, what would you do about the crime-ridden city of Chicago? What would you do about the criminals? Have you ever noticed this? It's always, we're gonna take care of the gun owners. So maybe you like President Trump, maybe you don't. So what do we have to look forward to with the President Harris administration? Number one, executive order restricting firearms. Number 2, bringing back the assault weapons ban. Number 3, empowering the ATF. That resonates in the West, doesn't it? Senator Harris is simply wrong. The libs are simply wrong. I mean, what's their big proposals? Hey, we're going to forgive student loan debt, and we're going to take your guns. And Mayor Pete gives us his thoughts on God. And the liberal media is soaking this up. Meanwhile, Donald Trump has the greatest economic revival, the lowest unemployment rate in 50 years, and yet we send idly by. And they'll be coming to Idaho. They'll be trying to get your vote. But to me, the idea of a national emergency on guns, that happens if we elect a lib. That happens if we have the unfortunate circumstances of this. Donald Trump, President Trump, is too much of a danger to these people, and they seek to eradicate him. They tried with the coup. They're going to try with impeachment. They're going to try with these lawsuits. And this is why when you talk to good people, a couple weeks ago we had A.J. Belukoff on. Now, A.J. Belukoff and us probably, we don't agree on a lot of things politically. A good man in politics, a good person in politics. Why in the world would anybody in their right mind get into politics if this is how they treat a big dog like Donald Trump? Because they don't like him. To personally malign and smear him. See, that's the thing that gets me about the devious little liberals, personally, professionally, politically, is when all of a sudden they can't beat us on ideals, so they personally attack us. They slander us. They smear us. They call us extremists. Is it extreme to want to support the Constitution of the United States of America? Is it an extreme to support the Second Amendment? Is it extreme to love America? I don't think so. Coming up next, Colorado lawmakers are debating a bill that would make their state a sanctuary state. Thank goodness we don't live in Colorado. There's something to toke on. Details next. Kevin Miller, KIDO Talk Radio. Blessed to be with you, Kevin Miller in the morning, KIDO Talk Radio. Phone number is 580-5436. 580-KIDO. She's at it again. Representative Ilhan Omar referring to U.S. troops during the Battle of Black Hawk Down as Satan. You remember she's from Somalia. Black Hawk Down, one of the more tragic efforts in the U.S. military, best-selling book by Mark Bowden, and then made into a major motion picture from Red State. As they say, everything you put on the internet lasts forever, and the dumb stuff inevitably surfaces at the worst possible time to bite you in the fanny. Case in point, Ilhan Omar, blah, blah, blah. On October 14th, 2017, some of the cheerful and jovial adherents of the religion of peace drove a truck bomb into a crowded street in front of a hotel in Mogadishu. This in Somalia is called a Saturday, so it goes on and on and on. We have people saying that it is horrible, the worst terror attack, this sort of thing. And then you have Omar. In his selective memory, he forgets to also mention the thousands of Somalis killed by the American forces that day. Not today, Satan. By the way, is this any person that should be elected to represent the United States of America? An old tweet by Representative Omar showing what side she's on, talking about Black Hawk Down and American forces. Can you imagine being a member of the American military and having to deal with an elected official? Boy, those folks in Minnesota sure got that one wrong. Speaking of other states, in our Thank Goodness We Live in Idaho segment, in Colorado, lawmakers are debating a bill that could make their state a sanctuary state, but the bill is facing some opposition from the governor, who threatened to veto it if state representatives didn't scale it back. Colorado Assemblywoman Adrienne Benavides is the author of the bill and says it will actually help fight crime, as it will encourage people to feel comfortable going to law enforcement.
If people are afraid to contact police, to call 911, serve as a witness, that undermines our security and safety of everyone in the state.
Sure, they call it the anti-ICE bill.
If we're really concerned about public safety, then we need to be encouraging ICE or other immigration authorities to be working with our local law enforcement.
You know, what does it say in this country? If you've done nothing wrong, what do you have to hide? There's a big debate going on now before the Supreme Court whether or not the word citizenship should be used. And then all of a sudden you have people saying, well, Kevin Miller, people are afraid. People like states in California or in Idaho where you have people that are here, perhaps illegally. They don't want to answer that question. Well, if you're not a citizen, you shouldn't count on the census, right? That's real simple. Donald Trump is right about that one. Tess in Boise with Kevin Miller on KIDO Talk Radio. Good morning, Tess.
Hi, good morning. Hey, so I just wanted to bring up something about, this militia group that's down on the border. They're not the only ones. You and I both know those groups have been down there for years. But how interesting that now these are the United Constitutional Patriots. They have a Facebook site. They have YouTube. You can go to their sites and take a look at everything. But the search that they are referring to occurred clear back in 2017. So I read a statement that his attorney made that said, he invited the officers in. He showed them the weapons. They went through everything in the house. But this occurred 2 years ago. So now why do they choose to arrest him now? So you can look at the YouTubes. But what's interesting, they say, they're impersonating law enforcement and such. Then jump over and go look at MCP, the Muslim Community Patrols, who in the last several months have showed up in New York. Now, these individuals, it's a Muslim group. They're in vehicles that look just exactly like the PD cars down there. They're dressed exactly like police officers. Matter of fact, they're wearing badges and uniforms. You cannot tell the difference. So maybe someone needs to explain what is the difference. What's the priority? What's the preference?
Well, the issue being that he's a convicted felon with the guns.
Well, I'm not sure what his conviction was. A lot of guys get arrested for different things, and they get arrested because they're out hunting with a .22.
But you have the Minutemen and you have other people that have been doing that for years. I don't know how you can break the law if you're detaining people that are here illegally and you're not doing anything wrong, saying, citizens arrest, you're not a citizen, right. We're calling the Border Patrol. Right, and and the thing is, anyone can do a citizen's arrest for even misdemeanors because it's within their sight. I know our friends that live in Deming, New Mexico. He has quit his job. He's already retired, but he's quit his second job because they have to escort their teenage granddaughters around town all the time because the amount of illegal adult males that have come into Deming, they're literally not allowed to leave the house by themselves anymore. They're prisoners in their own country. And Kevin Miller in the morning. Back to your phone calls. Liberty Linda, good morning.
Good morning, Kevin. Excuse me. You asked me if I had a vision lately. Well, I had one regarding President Trump the day of his election. Yeah, Kevin, the Spirit told me about noon on that day of the election that Donald Trump would indeed win the election, and they held back from giving us the results of the election until about 3 o'clock in the morning, if you remember. And we're all scratching our heads wondering what's going on. Why aren't they giving us the results? So anyway, I wanted to share that with you because it actually happened. I actually knew noon on that day of the election. And, and then I have a question, is it a sanctuary state against our Constitution?
I would agree with you on that.
Doesn't it mean they are a renegade state? These are just questions I'm asking. Perhaps some of your callers can help me out on this question because you have excellent callers. And,
look, it didn't work for the South to be a sanctuary state.
No, I mean, these things, things that are going on in our nation today, we're all sitting back scratching our heads going, what's going on?
Well, I'll tell you what's going on. It's the liberal takeover, and we've got to stop it. Liberty Linda, I got to run, but God bless.
Well, bless you, Kevin. Have a wonderful day.
You as well. Fox News Now, good morning.